Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. Oh, where's my hat? I like that hat there. Hope everybody's doing well out there in the world tonight. Welcome to forehead. Welcome to Student Loan Justice. It is Sunday, August 28th. I'm feeling pretty good today. How are you guys feeling? That song, REM. If we can put a man on the moon in like 8 years, can we not solve the student loan nonsense in 18 years? I think we can. We made a pretty solid step forward last Wednesday, folks. I hope you're pleased. So hopefully you realize and are aware that Biden announced a broad student loan cancellation on Wednesday for all federally owned student loans, up to $10,000 for supposedly everybody with a federally owned student loan, up to $20,000 for people who got the Pell Grant and have a federally owned student loan. So that all sounds good, folks. And trust me, don't trust me. You should be pleased. I mean, that's kind of a big deal. Just having a president say the words, I'm going to broadly cancel student loans by executive order. That's a big deal. But folks, I'm here to tell you, not $1 has yet been canceled. And frankly, I am extremely wary that many loans will be canceled at all. And I'll get into that in a minute. But that really changes things for us, folks. And I'll get into that in a minute as well. A couple of announcements. So we were on Fox News yesterday. As you might imagine, the opposition is shooting blood out of their eyes, and they are coming after us. Great guns. It's kind of a partisan thing. And by the way, if you're new to the group, welcome. We are Student Loan Justice. We're the oldest, first, and largest group in the country fighting only and absolutely for student loan justice. We've been around for 18 years now. We've done a lot of things. I'll just leave it at that. If you have any questions or comments and you're watching us on either Facebook or Twitter, and I can see your comments, I will very happily read your comments aloud on air. So we got this loan cancellation announcement from Biden. It's tricky, and I'll talk about why it's tricky later. Our opposition, the student loan swamp, they are freaking out right now, and you can't turn on the TV without seeing some Washington, D.C. expert talking about how this is going to cause inflation and ruin the economy, and it's dogs and cats living together, and it's the end of the world, and so forth. So clearly we've hit a nerve with this particular move, tricky though it may be. So yesterday we went on Fox News live to do an interview, and I may just play it here because it was so short. It was literally like 4 minutes. So I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to unpack it for you, and hopefully you have some comments of your own. Hopefully you've already seen it and you have some thoughts. But this is me going up against a guy named Jake Goldwine of the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget. They're looking out for the taxpayers. This Mark, M-A-R-C Goldwine. So hopefully I can do this right. I'm going to go ahead and do a screen share and let us dial this interview in.
Weighing in on President Biden's plan to forgive thousands of dollars in student loan debt per borrower. For more on this, we are joined by the founder of Student Loan Justice, Alan Collins, and Senior Vice President and Policy Director for the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget, Mark Goldwine. Mark, Alan, thank you for being here. Let's jump right in on the fairness issue. Some say it's unfair. Others say that it should have been more than $10,000 or $20,000 the Pell Grant. But I want to play for you what President Biden said when he was asked about the fairness part of it. Listen.
President, is this unfair to people who paid their student loans or chose not to take out loans?
Is it fair to people who, in fact, do not own multi-billion-dollar businesses that if they see one of these guys get them all a tax break? Is that fair? What do you think?
Well, what do you think, Alan? I'll start with you.
I think this entire lending system is one huge, unconstitutional, unfair, big government red state wrecking, nationally threatening lending beast. This lending system has got to go. It's over the cliff. Even before the pandemic, 85% of all borrowers were never going to be able to repay their loans. Look at states like Texas, $141 billion. How are we going to strip $141 billion out of the people of Texas? I think that would probably turn the state into something like Mexico. It's just not going to happen. This lending system has been stripped of bankruptcy protections, of statutes of limitations, and the federal government has been given a license to steal.
Well, let's broaden this, Mark, beyond just the state of Texas. CRFB, you guys putting out estimates that this is perhaps $500 billion. What can you tell me about the real cost? And what everyone wants to know is, how is this going to be paid for?
Yeah, we estimate this is going to cost about $500 billion. Penn Wharton budget model just came out and said it could be upwards of $1 trillion. I think our number is closer, but that is a tremendous cost. It's going to be paid by everybody through higher inflation. We think the inflation rate may go up maybe an extra quarter point, which basically means that 12% of Americans are getting a benefit. The other 88% are paying more at the grocery store.
And so when we hear from the White House, to follow up on that, Mark, we hear from the White House that it's going to be paid for through deficit reduction savings they've already made. Are you buying that?
No, this is like Ponzi scheme math. They're basically saying, because we're not going to restart payments as already scheduled, that's savings for something else. $500 billion is twice the cost of the 10-year savings from the Inflation Reduction Act. By the way, something I strongly supported of the administration's. They are giving away all of their deficit reduction several times over.
And Alan, are you worried about who's going to pay for this, how this is even paid for?
Yeah, no offense, but what Mark said is absolute nonsense. The large majority of that $1.6 trillion is monopoly money. It's interest, penalties, and fees way more than the original principal. So we're talking about canceling bad, uncollectible debt. Not one dime will be taken from the Treasury. Not one penny will be added to the national debt. And not $1 will be injected into the consumer economy to cause inflation. That's nonsense.
Mark, you want to respond?
I mean, everything you just said is false. Official scorekeepers from CBO to the Office of Management and Budget to the Department of Education acknowledge that this has a cost. It'll be recorded in year one. It'll be immediate loss to government wealth, and then over time, it'll be lower cash flow. Prior to the pandemic, we were, in fact, collecting $85 billion a year of student debt. Not all the debt was good, but these numbers, these $500 billion numbers, they account for the fact some will be bad.
And we didn't even work in the fact that progressives are upset that it's not enough. And of course, the possibility of possible legal challenges that could come. Alan and Mark, thank you for being here. We'll try and bring you back, because this story is certainly not going away, and a lot of people talking about it. Have a great rest of your Saturday.
Thank you.
All right.
And there you have it. You could tell this was kind of a Lion's Den interview. That's kind of how that goes on Fox News, which is what we love, quite frankly. So we only had 4 minutes, but I think I made our points. At least I tried to make them as strongly as possible. The only thing that I would change in that interview is somehow shoehorning the absolutely critical need to return bankruptcy protections to this debt, and maybe say I probably should have said that this is a very untested, untrustworthy, and tricky proposal that we heard from Biden, and that's true. And I will talk about that in a moment. But anyways, I hope you guys are pleased, and I hope that the meat of that argument made it through to you. So on the one hand, this Mark guy, and all of his friends, it's not just him, it's probably 36 people in the Washington, D.C. swamp or more that we're seeing on TV, writing articles, on radio, etc. Their argument is essentially that because the government isn't making as much profit as they would like or as they had originally forecast, this is a cost. This is a cost that taxpayers will have to pay for, that this will increase inflation, and so forth. And folks, that's just not true. And here's why. It kind of comes down to this question. So suppose you lend a guy $100 and he promises to repay you $100, but for whatever reason, he only pays you back $150. So you lent him 100, you got 150 back. Are you actually losing money there? Is that actually a cost to you? Well, depending on what your answer to that question is, kind of defines what side of this argument you're going to come down on. Now, remember, the federal student loan program, when it was created in 1965 in its current form, it actually goes back a few years to the 50s, but when the Higher Education Act was signed, President LBJ, Lyndon Baines Johnson, who had a birthday yesterday, by the way, happy birthday, LBJ, he declared that the federal student loans would be free of interest. Those are his exact words. And today, $100 billion a year clicks off in interest alone on this federal lending program. It is frankly disgusting. So in my world where I live, and I think where most Fox News viewers live, if you lend a guy $100 and he pays you back 150, although he promised to pay you back 200, you're not going to be thrilled, but you have no claim that you're losing money on that. So this is really the core difference here. Now, one good thing about that interview was that Mark acknowledged that up to this point, the government has been getting $85 billion in payments from the people up to before COVID. Now, we've only been saying $70 billion. And so that's important. That becomes very important because if you extrapolate that over, say, 10 or 12 years, what we have is the federal government lending out around $95 billion a year, and using Mark's higher number, 85 billion, they're getting back 85 billion a year. Well, and this is just back of the napkin stuff here, guys. But so essentially, the federal government is paying out 95, getting back 85. So that's a $10 billion actual cost to the government over 10 or 12 years. So we now have a pretty solid basis for saying that of that $1.6 trillion in outstanding federal student loan debt, probably only maybe $100 billion is actual unpaid principal. So 1.5 of that $1.6 trillion is interest, penalties, fees. The borrowers have paid. The government has made almost all of its money back on this lending program. Again, this lending program that originally was hailed as being an interest-free loan program. So yeah, guys, don't believe the swamp creatures. And at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter what guys like Mark Goldwine or other people say. The lending system is finished. It's failed. It's not coming. It's vanishing into a mist of unpopular illegitimacy. And before the pandemic, less than half of everyone was even paying. Nearly 60% of everyone was not paying on their loans before the pandemic. Now, today, almost nobody's paying. But we can now say January 1st. When they turn these loans back on, for the longest time, and this is another important way that this battle has changed for us, guys. For the longest time, I was saying whenever they try and turn this lending program back on, I'll be stunned if 15 or 20% of the people are resume paying. Well, now, in light of this loan cancellation, whatever the reality happens to be, like even if they disqualify 90+% of the people who try and get this loan cancellation, which I think is a very, very real possibility. In fact, that is what I would predict. Regardless of whether this thing actually works or not, there are 23 million people in the country who, that's about half of all borrowers, who, as of last Wednesday, said, cool, I'm done. I'm done with these loans. And knowing human nature, come January 1st, where technically they're supposed to resume paying, these people are going to be like, no, I'm not paying. I filled out my application to get this loan cancellation or whatever. President said 20,000 or less. I got the Pell Grant. I have 20,000. I'm done. Those people are absolutely mostly not going to resume paying, right? So these are people that, all things being equal, when I said that before, I assumed that a fair number of those people were going to resume paying, but now that's not going to happen. A huge number of those people will not resume paying. So when I said before that I would be stunned if even 15 or 20% of the people resume paying January when they turn the lending program back on, now you have to take that down by quite a bit, like 5%, probably 10%, maybe. So now we're at the point where when January 1st rolls around, I'll be surprised if 10 to 15% of the borrowers resume paying, maybe even less. I think I have 8% stuck in my mind for some reason. So, and I'm usually a pretty good guesser on predicting these sorts of things. So, I've been living and breathing this nonsense for many years. Anyways, if you have any questions or comments, throw them out. I'm going to look for your comments right now. This nonsense for many years. Anyways, if you have any questions or comments, throw them out. I'm going to look for your comments. Okay. Hey, Lauren Schreiber's with us tonight. Peaky Blinders hat. I don't know if you're talking about my hat or not. Lauren Schreiber says, thank you for going on there. Oh, keep sharing the info. Yeah, I'm happy to do it, Lauren. We love going into the Lion's Den, guys. If we could do that 3 times a day, it would be a very good thing for the public discourse. The truth is important. And these spinmeisters like Mark Goldwine are everywhere right now. I mean, if you believe them, the country is going to fall off a cliff because they're canceling a bunch of largely bad, unpayable debt, which does nothing to the national debt, requires not a dime from the Treasury, and absolutely injects not even one thin penny into the consumer economy. So people are going to be able to spend money and cause inflation. That's just nonsense, ridiculous. Ann Cooper says, your absolute nonsense and monopoly money comments are awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you. I'm trying to reach the Fox audience, and I tried to talk like a normal person. And you could see Goldwine was, deficit that, the loss will be recorded. And he was sounding pretty wonky and swampy, if you ask me. So I don't know where that turning Texas into Mexico thing kind of came from. That's been kind of bubbling around in my brain lately. I try not to cross any lines there, but whatever. I think the meaning was clear. Ann Cooper says, I think you should use an example just like that the next time, because I bet you 99% of people do not realize that more money has been paid back already. I agree totally, Ann. I love to trot out the example of people like Vanjie, who's, I don't know why I just always go to Vanjie. We have so many people like this, but so Vanjie originally borrowed $26,000 back in the 80s or 90s or whatever. Vanjie has repaid $100,000 nearly on her loans. $26,000. She's repaid $100,000. Today she owes $132,000 on this $26,000 debt. And I hope that Fox News and others will have us back in a more long form interview, because it's just so hard to cram what you want into 4 minutes. That's just ridiculous. But we have paid, unlike PPP loans, student loan borrowers have paid and paid and paid and paid through the nose. Now, going forward, they will not pay. Going forward, we're done. And in my humble opinion, I've said this many times, in my humble opinion, nobody should ever pay another dollar back on their federal student loans. This is a dangerous, unconstitutional, totally unfair lending beast that does not need to be fed. It needs to be starved. It needs to be taken to the bath and drowned in the tub. And that's a very conservative, libertarian thing that I just said there. So I think we're going to score some points with this interview. I hope more people saw it. But we need your help, guys. This stuff, even if it's on Fox News, this was on a Saturday. I doubt that even 500,000 people were even watching that, if not less. So, you know, the interview is sitting there for anyone to spread. I would urge you all to find us on Twitter. That's student loan just #1, student loan JUS #1, and you can see that we're highlighting that interview. Spread it around like wildfire. And in fact, there's a Bitly. I made a Bitly link for it. bit.ly/SLJ Fox News, and that will bring up that interview. So bit.ly/SLJ Fox News. Spread it everywhere you can. Hopefully we'll get more opportunities like this, guys. I mean, really, right now, the political lay of the land is that the Democrats are going to do very well from this. I guarantee you, 23 million people, it was a weight off their backs. And although they're not crushed like 95% of people on this group, 20 grand is 20 grand. That's not small. So there are a lot of people that were like, yes, on Wednesday. And they got a nice, warm, glow, fuzzy feeling, good feeling about the Democrats and Joe Biden out of this. The Democrats are going to, I would almost virtually guarantee you that whenever they do the next presidential approval rating poll, Joe Biden is going to jump up pretty solidly by quite a few clicks. Will this be enough to get them to retain power in the midterms? No, I don't think so, guys. I don't think so. I think people like us, the high balance borrowers, particularly the older borrowers who have been wrecked by these loans for years and decades, for whom this thing does nothing, we're not very impressed. And I would hope that at least a good 25% of the people with less than $20,000, I would hope that they don't trust that announcement further than they can bowl it. And maybe that's something I should discuss. Guys, not $1 has yet been canceled. They said up to in the announcement. And while they're now saying that up to means it's limited by your loan and there's not going to be any income sliding scale, I don't know, guys. There's a million different details that have not yet come out about this. And ladies and gentlemen, history shows the Department of Education has no desire, no intentions of canceling any loans. They just don't. It's not in their DNA. In fact, they do everything they can to not cancel student loans. Historically, their disqualification rate for any number of student loan cancellation gimmicks, disqualification rate has been 99%. And like even this new revised public service loan forgiveness thing, this waiver, it's still only a success rate of about 10%. So 90% disqualification rate. This is how the Department of Education rolls, guys. So even if you only have $5,000 or $10,000 in student loans, don't automatically assume that that's going to go away, because there are a million ways that you will be kicked out. You will fall through the cracks. You will not get the loan cancellation promised. This is how the Department of Education rolls. They're good at it. They're very good at it. So yeah, I mean, the numbers that I heard Department of Education people throwing around, even the day of the announcement, they were like, well, we don't know what percentage of people are going to apply. It might be 50%, might be 75%. So even they are already laying the groundwork for just wholesale denials, disqualifications, people not able to make it through the application process. We're going to see a lot of shoes dropping on this, probably after the midterm elections, like on November 9th or the day after the elections, whenever those are. It's going to be like, oh yeah, by the way, yeah, your loans have to be in good standing to get this cancellation, by the way. Oh, by the way, you had to file your taxes each of the past 3 years. And, who knows? Whatever they want to shove in there, they can do. And, oh, by the way, the proof of income, yeah, we need a signed, notarized, we need a urine sample and a DNA test, and we need this and that. They can throw anything they want into that application process, guys. That's all I'm saying. So don't trust anything. We will believe it when probably a year or more from now, when we have some hard data to look at. But of course, that's going to be after the election. So, the Democrat thing was a shameless political play. I should say better things about Democrats. You know, I agree wholeheartedly. This is a conversation I had earlier with Guy Hans and many others. You know, just getting a sitting president to say, I am going to cancel student loans broadly by executive order. That is something that, as I said, started here on this group, truly did. And we should all be very sort of happy and proud about that, I suppose. But I'm not going to go gushing over the Democrats and saying, okay, guys, well, there you have it. The Democrats are the ones that you need to vote for. I'm not doing that. We've been fooled too many times by both parties in the past. I'm not going to get all gushy over the Democrats. If Congress returns bankruptcy protections S2598 as that bill is written right now, if they pass that bill, well, then yeah. And it's a partisan thing. I don't think it will be. I think there will be Republicans that support that bill as well. But you know, if people want our endorsement, the proof is in the pudding, and words are exactly that. When we see a bill pass that actually provides this floor of long overdue leverage for us that is, you know, substantial, that is solid. But promises of loan cancellation have come and gone, almost more times than I can count since 2006, guys. So if you're a Democratic operative, you might want to take that back to your people and let them know. And I don't think that I am alone in this. I think many people many of the people, even with $20,000 less in loans, I think many of those people are a little smarter than we give them credit for. So. Hey, Ann Cooper asks, I think, is this a question? Since I am relatively new to your group, you may have already covered this, but has anybody filed a lawsuit and then appealed? Because I'm assuming it would not win in the first couple of rounds of court, like a case to the Supreme Court, maybe find a good law firm to take it on contingency or pro bono. I might be dreaming. And I'm glad you asked. And let me say, over the past 18 years, we have seen a gazillion class action lawsuits come and go and come and go and come and go. Almost all of the time they go nowhere. They wind up nothing. Sometimes they wind up with a settlement, usually an out of court settlement, which results in, you know, a check for like $5 for the borrowers. Sometimes it's a little more substantial. But I think that the real question here, this is an unconstitutional lending program. The founding fathers called for uniform bankruptcy laws in the Constitution. They also called for equal protection under the law, and student loan borrowers are not given equal protection under the bankruptcy laws. This is maybe a little bit of a stretch, but in Article 13, indentured servitude is outlawed, and the student loans as we see today, particularly with the 99% disqualification rates from these income-driven repayment programs, that's starting to check most, if not all, of the boxes as being the defining hallmarks of what indentured servitude is. There are many very strong, legal, constitutionally enshrined constitutional grounds on which one could mount a very successful, strong, great chance of winning lawsuit with the Supreme Court. However, Anne, I'm here to tell you, it's just not happening. Jurisprudence in this country has abandoned us. I personally have begged the president of the ACLU to take on a constitutional challenge on the grounds that I just said, any number of those. Due process also. Nobody wants to take that case, Anne. We have quite a few people. Well, we have a number of people I am aware of and that I know personally who have attempted to appeal their bankruptcy cases up to the Supreme Court, and they have been tossed out. They have been quashed. Usually lack of standing was what the judge says. But really, if you talk to these people, and they're very good people, smart people that I talked to, it was basically a kangaroo court. So there's the secret handshake stuff going on with the American judiciary in this country, and for whatever reason, nobody wants to challenge the bankruptcy laws. So you know, lawyers are not. We are not going to sue our way out of this problem, guys. And in many ways, aside from the constitutional stuff that I just said, the bad guys really don't need to break the law. They've already bought the law. They've already gotten bankruptcy taken away. They've already gotten statutes of limitations taken away by law. So, yeah, lawyers are not going to save us on this. And really, Congress caused this problem, and the president. Congress and the president are the most efficient entities to solve this problem. Congress took away the bankruptcy rights. Congress took away statutes of limitations. Congress should return both of those things. But yeah, so this battle has changed, guys. I think we're going to lose a tremendous number of people in this fight. Those 24 million people who have $20,000 or less. Frankly, I don't think many of those people were super charged on our group in the first place, because honestly, if you have $10,000 or less in student loans, you're not doing too bad. You're probably not going to go out of your way to fight for student loan justice. So I'm not particularly worried about that. What I am, in fact, to me, this is kind of a blessing, and this is important. Biden wrote in to that announcement through a memo that accompanied the announcement that the authority that he's doing this cancellation by is not the Higher Education Act, which gives the president and the secretary full, broad authority to cancel student loans. No. They're not going with the Higher Education Act as justification for this. They are going with the HEROES Act, the COVID Relief Act, which gives the president emergency powers in the case of an emergency like COVID. So the up and the down of it is that Biden and his people have absolutely no intentions or desires, and probably will not cancel any more loans by executive order for the duration of Biden's time in office. So further loan cancellation, as a practical matter, guys, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen unless huge new pressure beyond what has already been put on Biden over the past year and a half. Something very new is going to be needed in order to compel Biden to ever cancel loans again in the next 2 years. And that thing is the return of the threat of bankruptcy to these loans. Loan cancellation is no longer on the table, guys, and loan cancellation will not be on the table again unless and until we get bankruptcy back. S-2598 is the bill right now that everyone should be fighting for. Forget about student loan cancellation. We've seen what Biden and the Democrats are going to do. That's on the shelf now. All we have now to fight for is S-2598. Most important thing I will say tonight, the most important bill, the only thing that's worth fighting for right now is S-2598. Whether you want to file for bankruptcy on your loans, and by the way, nobody wants to file for bankruptcy on their loans. Bankruptcy sucks. It's a terrible thing to have to do. Nobody wants to do it. But whether you want to, or whether you want your loans canceled, whether you want some kind of a negotiated settlement, kind of a break on the interest, some middling solution, whatever you want for your loans, that all starts with getting the constitutionally enshrined right of bankruptcy back. We've got a great bill in the Senate right now that does that, S-2598. That is where our 100% from now on laser focus is going to be. There's nothing else that matters, whether you would ever file or not. And by the way, I suspect that very few people will ultimately even have to file once we get the right returned. Once we get the threat of bankruptcy back, it will be obvious to the Department of Education that they have got to broadly forgive interest at a minimum. But frankly, I think they're going to have to cancel loans broadly. They're going to have to cancel this debt very broadly, very meaningfully, way more than $10,000 for many people. Maybe on a case-by-case basis. I don't know. Who knows? What I know for a fact is that nothing good is going to happen beyond that thing that we heard on Wednesday. Nothing good will happen unless and until we get the threat of bankruptcy returned to us. Now, the other groups, they were one of the groups is totally fake. That would be student debt crisis. They were popping the champagne bottles on Wednesday. Well, those groups are done. Student debt crisis was never a trustworthy group. We found deep ties between them and the student loan industry, the lobbying industry, through something called the DCI group, which is just disgusting. It's AstroTurf. It's where banks, insurance companies, tobacco companies, oil companies, even foreign governments pay this company, the DCI group, to create fake grassroots groups on their behalf. Well, we found an administrator on the student debt crisis years ago had come from the war room of the DCI group. And this group, Student Debt Crisis, they have been opposing us on bankruptcy for the past 12 years. They have been a cancer on the movement for student loan justice. Well, they were popping the champagne corks on Wednesday with Elizabeth Warren, I might add. Bad on Elizabeth Warren. Shame on Elizabeth Warren. Calling this a huge victory. It's not. But those guys are done. And I'll be interested to see if they drop out. And I don't think they will, because I think they still have a very strong agenda to keep bankruptcy gone from these loans. So we'll see what happens with that. But guys, pay no attention to the noise. Pay no attention to the noise. That does nobody any good. These are your loans. This is your problem. And I can tell you, after having done this for 18 years now, nearly, the bad guys want you doing nothing. The bad guys want you waiting, watching, worrying, hoping, praying, reading Forbes magazine, reading Yahoo Finance, reading 90% of the media that is swamp media geared against us. The bad guys want you doing nothing. They want you sitting there with your tail in between your legs. Don't give them the pleasure. We on this group are the eye of this hurricane. We are the tip of the spear in the battle for student loan justice. All of the loans have got to be canceled, by the way. The whole entire lending system is finished. Almost nobody's going to start repaying in January. The writing's on the wall. So we've got the wind at our backs, guys. We've got tens of millions of people on our side, whether they know it or not. As a practical, actual matter, we've got over 1 million people on our petition. Now, again, I suspect we're going to lose easily 30% of those petition signers, but they were probably never even helping us in the first place, because $10,000, yeah, you don't care. So I'm going to say that we're about as strong as we've ever been. I would only hope that those of you out there with, $100,000 or more, that you will realize that now you're going to be screwed if this is all that happens. We've got to fight for bankruptcy, guys. Your loans, your livelihood hangs in the balance of what happens certainly over the next month before early voting begins. I think, hope, and pray that we can get this bill through Congress by October 1st, when early voting begins. If the Democrats are smart, that's what they will push for. Worst case scenario, this bill has got to pass by the end of the year. It's got to. All bills go away at the end of the year. There's a reset. It's the end of the congressional session. So time is of the essence, guys. And if you were not fighting with us before, you better be fighting for us now. Hey, speaking of Vanjie, I don't know if your ears were burning. Vanjie says it's because Biden hates us so much that he doesn't have the balls to use an executive order. Well, see, we can't really say that anymore, Vanjie, because Biden indeed did do an executive order last Wednesday, and the claim is that they will be canceling, $20,000 in debt. But I agree, Vanjie. I think it's going to be fake. If history is any guide, it absolutely will be fake. But we'll see. As I said, the cancellation ship has sailed. We are absolutely not going to see anything from Biden again on the cancellation issue unless and until we get threat of bankruptcy back. So we'll see. So the one action item I have for you guys, I'm going to wrap it up, I think, now. And I'm sorry if I didn't get to all of your comments. The most important action item I have for you, and we're going to need you to do this every single day. If getting this loan scam is solved is actually important to you, and I think it is if you're watching this, at the minimum that you can do is our daily actions. You can see the link right there. Every day we do daily actions. If you've never done a daily action, do the past week or even month worth of daily actions. They're quick. It's like Twitter stuff. You can do one daily action usually in like around 1 minute. It takes not more than even 1 minute. So that would be the minimum that you could do. We need to get more press, guys. We stand at the ready to go into the lion's den, and there are many lion's dens right now all over the place, and they are screaming bloody murder, and we would love to go in there and shut them up and shut them down with the truth, because that's what we do. That's what we're good at. We've been sharpening this sword for decades now, and there is nothing that the bad guys can say that we cannot quash into the dust. I wish I would have had another hour to go back and forth with Mark Goldwine. I would have exposed him as the fraud that he is. It makes blood shoot out of my eyes that they let him get the last word. And he said, "Oh, everything you said was false." No, everything I said was true in that interview, provably true. And I would just love to have a long form debate with that asshole, and many assholes like him, by the way. The list is long. The swamp creatures are plenty. They're well paid. They're ambitious. They're eager. They hate us. They live in their Washington, D.C. bubble, and they need to be popped. And that is what we're good at, ladies and gentlemen. So this is the heart of the battle. And anything you can do in your local area, getting your local media to do a story is exceptionally strong. Last week, we were on the news in Indiana and Illinois and Wisconsin and many other places. We love doing interviews with local news stations, radio stations, newspapers. We can give them people in their neighborhoods with very compelling stories to tell. But that all starts with you. This is a grassroots movement, guys. Grassroots. I'm a blade of grass. You're a blade of grass. We're pretty much equal. I know way more than most people on student loans, and that is a sad thing to say. But hey, guys, we're ready to roll. So the way it works best is you set them up. You call your news people. You call your local paper. Point them to us. Give them my phone number, 202-594-1120. Give my email address, alan@studentloanjustice.org. Tell them that we have people in their area that are willing to be interviewed. Make that initial outreach. Send them to us. If you set them up, we will knock them down. And, I would love to go on any number of conservative shows. And we've been on Fox twice now, many times over the years. But just in the past few months, we've been on Fox twice. We've been on News Nation. We've interviewed with, what's it called? I can never remember. Very conservative. The Epoch Times. We love going into the lion's den, guys. It's what we're good at. It's what we are good at. And by the way, we're a fiercely nonpartisan group. If you haven't noticed, we pretty much hate both parties. But so whatever your political stripes are, we need you in this fight, and you're very welcome in this group. And we're very glad that you're here. Beyond that, I'm just going to say, buckle up, guys. This coming week is going to be a ball buster. We're going to be going nonstop. And you got to be doing your part. So at the minimum, do those daily actions. Very last thing I will say is, dudes, please donate. We can't do this on nothing. And people, it's gotten increasingly hard to donate the better we have done. Like, we are so close right now to actual success. And fundraising has gotten just as hard as it's ever been, I think, because of inflation, which was not caused by student loan cancellation, by the way. But please, guys, if you appreciate all that we've gotten done, if you appreciate all that we are poised to get done, please pitch in. We can do what we do on almost no money at all, like a few $1,000s a month. That's it. That's like poverty wages for the average household or whatever. But we cannot do it on nothing. So come on, guys. Don't make this fundraising nonsense as hard as it is for us. I hate fundraising. I hate it. I'm no good at it. So please make it easier on us. And anyways, I'll be back tomorrow. Do our daily actions. Buck up. We got a lot of work to do, and we're fighting the good fight, and it feels good to fight. And I think everybody on this group that I've seen, Ann and Vanjie and others, I think they'll agree that it feels really good to fight this fight because the founders are on our side. The Constitution is on our side. Millions, if not hundreds of millions of people, whether they know it or not, are on our side. We're fighting the good fight, guys, and it feels good to do that. So don't forget that. Let's make this week the strongest week in the history of student loan justice. Let's get it done. Good luck. Godspeed in your efforts. See you tomorrow. God bless everyone.